Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this month for Meet the Author. We are so privileged to be here with Mr. Blake Crouch, the author of this month's book, Recursion. He's actually there's very few authors that we've read twice, to be honest with you, and Blake is one of them. So we read Dark Matter about 2 years ago. Just to kind of get everybody front of mind of who this author is. Blake Crouch is a best-selling novelist and screenwriter. He's the author of the novel Dark Matter, for which he's writing the screenplay for Sony Pictures. His international best-selling Wayward Pines trilogy was adapted into a television series for Fox, executive produced by M. Night Shyamalan. That was summer 2015's #1 show. With Chad Hodge, Crouch also created Good Behavior, the TNT television show starring Michelle Dockerty, who I love. She's from Downton Abbey, based on his Letty Dobesh novellas. He has written more than a dozen novels that have been translated into over 30 languages, and his short fiction has appeared in numerous publications, including Ellery, Queen, and Alfred Hitchcock Mystery Magazine. Crouch lives in Colorado. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure.
Just to kick off, I know we've talked to you before, and we actually have, it's still on our website, our interview with you the first time around, but can you give us a brief intro into how Blake Crouch became an author?
I wonder if I'll say the same thing I said last time. I started off by telling my younger brother, Jordan, scary bedtime stories when I was 12 and he was 6. And they would get more and more elaborate. And I just loved the reactions I would get. And I loved the idea of pulling someone along with a story, scaring them, surprising them. And I, from there, started, I think my first real writing was Star Wars fan fiction in like 1990. It was interestingly 30 years, like it was the same sort of fiction that the new movies are based on. It was like 30 years after, and I just had such a fun time doing that. And I wrote poetry in high school, bad poetry. And then I started writing a novel in high school that I finished in college. It was terrible. It wasn't it, but it was my first real attempt to do the long form version of writing. And my next book I wrote was Desert Places, and I found an agent with that book. And it was published in 2004. And man, it has been a long, winding road to the books I'm writing now.
So it was 2004 when you started like kind of full-time author?
I was not a full-time author yet. That was the first year I published something. I was not a full-time author until 2011.
Awesome. Well, we're glad you're a full-time author. I can tell you
Thank
that.
you.
We have so many questions for you already in the chat window. Ladies, just to reiterate, if you want to answer or ask a question live, please feel free. There's a raise your hand functionality. And if you don't and you want to ask them in the chat window, then I'll try and cover as many as I possibly can. While I continue to admit people. Okay, so I have some kind of like overarching questions here that I will get to. So Sarah says, one of our members compared the book to Michael Crichton's books in that it seems to be a warning of the dangers of technology. Is that something you intended to do?
For sure. I think even more so than when Crichton was writing, we are at a really interesting precipice with where technology is. I never want my books to feel like I'm screaming that technology is bad or, is going to be our downfall. I think my perspective is more that it might be our downfall, or it might be a saving thing for all of humanity. We're finally at this place where we have we have the intelligence and we have the wherewithal to create things that might save us or might destroy us. And I think that kind of started with the idea of splitting the atom in the Manhattan Project. I mean, you can get such power and such incredible energy out of that could be put to, turning turbines to create electricity, or you could use that to destroy and level cities. And when you think about like a time machine is kind of a perfect example, a perfect stand-in for, I think, all technologies that could destroy us or make our lives better. I mean, also think about gene editing. That's something that's very much coming more and more into the zeitgeist and the public awareness now. I just think we have to be very, very careful. Our planet is in trouble. Things do not look great for the end of this century. And the question is, are we going to use this power to sort of avert all the existential threats that are facing us, or are we going to use this power to destroy ourselves, like some might argue we're doing with things like social media?
Just to that point, I just wonder if you can kind of expand a little bit on it. When you talk about kind of where we are with technology today, are you like up to date on kind of like everything that's happening in order to like kind of convey like a realistic story, or is this all just kind of being mastermind in your brain and you don't really look in the outside world to get kind of like I don't know if I'm saying it right, but
definitely not up to date on everything that's happening in the whole world. But I try to stay up to date on the things that I'm writing about and that are interesting me. I take a lot of like scientific periodicals and try to have a sense of what technologies are emerging. It's really interesting, the one, especially with recursion, which I can talk about later, but like some of the science that I came up with in recursion was, it was speculative, but it was also grounded in some technologies that were emerging, especially some of the things with the electromagnetic radiation and how focusing that on the brain and using that to project memory. I didn't realize how close to a reality some of that stuff was. It's much closer than we think. So, once I discover that, I kind of go down the rabbit hole and try to learn whatever I can.
It's so crazy to me because when as we speak to you right now, it like I read the book and I just thought, oh wow, he's so creative, and not that you're not, but that like never did it enter my mind that it's actually based on something that is like in like early phase development.
Yeah, I mean, not so much like the time travel aspect, but the idea that you could, for instance, put your head in some sort of apparatus, like under a mag microscope, that magnetic electro, that sort of processes all of these firings that are going on. They can do that, and you can think about a song. And they can tell you what song you're imagining. That's crazy. That's crazy. It's like, do we want that? I mean, technology is going to continue to just become more and more intrusive and more invasive in our lives. And it's tricky because in some ways it makes our lives easier, and it makes connecting to other people, especially across distances, and an easier thing to do. But there are trade-offs, and are we really going to go down the road of sort of merging our bio wetware with actual software and these things?
Shara asks, your plots are so incredibly unique and creative. Can you tell us about your brainstorming and writing process? And you've kind of expanded on that a bit, but yeah, where do your ideas start?
It's different for every book. For recursion, it just started with, I mean, so I don't know how many of you guys read Dark Matter.
A lot would have probably, but.
Yeah, so after Dark Matter, I wanted to write something, I wanted to write another big thing, a big emotional thing. And I started asking, like, what are sort of the real touchstones of just what it is to be human? And I kept coming back to the idea of memory, like what is more profound and more defining than our memories? And that's literally where this book started. And there were a bunch of fits and starts trying to find my way into building a book around that idea, because that's not really an idea. That's the vaguest ghost of an idea. And so I started thinking about it, and I was like, well, what if you could go back to memories? What if you could relive a memory? And at this point in time, I hadn't gone the full next step of what if you could go back into a memory and stay there and live your life forward again from that point. I hadn't gotten there yet. I was just like, well, what if you could go back into your memories and relive them? And that seemed really interesting to me. And I thought that was a very human desire and something a lot of people could relate to. And I certainly could at that point in my life. But as I started planning the book, it just didn't quite, I was like, but then what? Like, that's cool, but where does the story go? And then I was like, wow, I mean, what if you stay in memories and you live your life forward? And then I was like, isn't that kind of just time travel? Do you want to write a time travel book? And I started really thinking about it. And I had never really wanted to write a time travel thing. I don't know, I just feel like time travel sometimes is such a cheat. Like, if you really logically think about time travel, it's stupid. It doesn't work, because if you go back and, if I go back and stop myself from doing something, then suddenly I'm my grandfather. And it's just, I think it's all kind of ridiculous. But the idea of creating these new rules for this book, where you go back, but you remember this other life. And then when you catch back up to the point in time where you went back, everyone else around you remembers it too. And I thought that's really cool. And I was watching Back to the Future right around the time I was trying to figure this out. I mean, for the 50th time. And at the end of the movie, I got to the end of the movie where Marty McFly returns and his parents are living this much better, cooler life, and they don't remember any of their shitty lives before. And I thought, what if they did remember their shitty lives before, and they had these two competing timelines in their head? That starts to get interesting for me. And then I'm like, now we start to have a book taking shape. And so then I'm like, all right, well, how do you make that idea bigger? What if it's not just this family? What if you branch it out and entire segments of the population have competing memories of what happened? And then I was like, isn't that also just sort of kind of what we're living in today? Because literally some crazy shit happens on the news and a bunch of people run out there, and some people tell us exactly what happened, and other people tell us what we saw didn't happen. And it just felt like that unreliableness of what reality is was really what we're all living today. So those were all the different pieces that came together to set me down the path for this book. And I'm not even talking about the characters yet, which I don't even have a book without characters.
Thank you. Ladies, just for those who have joined us, if you want to ask any questions, please feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to ask Blake live, but you can also put them in the chat window, and we have quite a few there, so I'll get to them as I can. Blake, we're going to dive right into your characters now. Katie said that their book chapter discussed Slade and was curious if you ever thought about including Slade's point of view of what he saw in his various timelines.
That's interesting. No, when I was writing the book, I didn't. I wanted to keep the book like a real, two POV, Helena and Barry. I really wanted to go back and forth between those two. And typically I like staying in a single point of view in a book. So recursion was very different for me. And that's something I don't normally, I think there's real power in telling a story from one person's point of view. And so I didn't divert from that lightly. So I definitely didn't want to throw in a Slade point of view, but I did spend a lot of time kind of imagining what his lifetimes might have been, and sort of what his journey was through, all of these lives that he lived, trying to build the chair and losing it and building it again. I don't know. Maybe that's good fodder for the TV series that they're putting together. That's the kind of thing I hope that they would do, is let's follow Slade for a season and see what his journey was like.
That would be cool. And I do want to ask you about television, but I'll wait and ask you in a little bit. Katie would like to know what you think Barry would have said to Helena to reintroduce himself at the end of the book.
Nice try. I get asked, that is the question I get asked most about recursion. And I don't know what he says, but I'll tell you, so I'm not gonna answer the question but I will explain to you why I can't answer the question. like finishing books, like writing a good ending to a book is really, really, really hard to do. It just has to have a certain energy and closure and momentum to it. And this was one of the harder endings. It was the hardest ending I ever had to write, because I kind of had felt like I'd written my characters down some blind alleys and I didn't know how to get them out. But I finally did. And then I had this scene where Barry goes to Helena after what, I think 6 lifetimes, and he finds her in this bar and she doesn't recognize him. And I spent a week writing various versions of what's that first line that Barry says to Helena, and like a bunch of like really earnest stuff, a bunch of stupid stuff. I mean, he's just sit down across from her. He's like, "Hey, girl." I mean, everything sounds dumb everything sounded stupid when I wrote it. And what I realized is the story ended for me as soon as he sat down beside her. The story was finished. I didn't have anything else to say about these characters, and they had to go live on without me from this point. And when I realized that, and I just wrote, he says, and then the in dash, I was like, it just felt like perfect, absolutely perfect. And I promise you, I guarantee you, I've never thought about what happened to them after I wrote that ending. Never considered it.
So I think that answers your question, Laura, but she wants to know if you're considering a sequel.
No, this book was so hard. That's why I did when we took the book to try to sell it to Hollywood. I did not. Typically, I would want to be kind of involved in the adaptation process. I'm a screenwriter also, and sometimes that's, I find that's a really rewarding aspect, because you've already figured so much of the book and the characters out. It's like, why just give that to someone else and let them do that? Like I did that. I've done the hard work. But with Recursion, I was like, no. Have fun storming the castle. You guys can do this one without me. So, no, there's no sequel in mind for that I will be writing. But maybe something of a sequel comes out in the adaptation. We'll see.
And I do want to talk about Hollywood and all of that. But before we do that, I have a question that was emailed in, and she says, where did your interest in physics or different dimensions come from? And did you conduct a lot of research on the topic to write this book and Dark Matter?
Where did it come from? That's an interesting question. Because in college, I didn't really study any science in college. I was an English major and an anthropology minor and a creative writing minor. I took as few science classes. I took geology because I was like, that's easier. It's rocks. So I started getting interested in quantum mechanics probably like in the mid 2000s. I was writing very different books back then. I was writing much more straight thrillers. There was nothing supernatural about them. There was really nothing speculative about them either. But in the back of my mind, I was like, this whole idea that quantum mechanics presents, and I don't remember where I first heard about it, the idea that there could be multiple worlds out there and different realities, and maybe our choices create them. That was always in the back of my mind, starting probably around 2007 or 8. But the science was just really daunting to me because, as I mentioned, I wasn't really trying to learn a lot of science in college. So I started reading a lot about it. I started talking to scientists, to physicists. And I think what I really connected to was, physics especially is, to me, as much a philosophy as it is a hard science and a mathematics. Just the things it suggests about that it suggests that reality is not what we think it is, that it's so much different, and that what we think of as the world around us is such an illusion, and there's so much we don't see that is just right on the periphery. That just really connected with me, and so I just started doing my own studies and doing my own research and trying to. And then I would also start taking notes. I had a journal for a long time where I was like, there is a great book out there that involves quantum mechanics and multiverse and just the idea of the road not taken. And but I didn't want to do, I just didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it the wrong way. It felt like such a big idea. And I think I just wasn't ready as a writer, to tackle it probably until after Wayward Pines.
So Dark Matter and Recursion were both Wayward Pines as well, but both huge books, very well received. Do you feel like that's your niche now?
What do you mean?
Or like, will you always write these type of stories now, or will you go back into a different genre, or will you go back to thriller? Or I feel like it must be really, and you said Recursion was difficult to write, but I feel like it must be really difficult to come up with such a creative and unique idea. So it's like, where do you go from here?
Yeah. No, it's something I think about a lot. Like my next book, the book I'm working on right now is definitely in the, it's not about different dimensions or anything, but it is definitely in the vein of Dark Matter and Recursion in terms of it being a big scientific premise with very human characters. No, I don't ever want to pigeonhole myself and say this is my niche and this is the only kinds of books I'll ever write. I think that just seems really boring to me. I don't know what I'll be writing in 10 years. I sometimes feel like Dark Matter, Recursion, and then this book I'm working on now, that they are like a set of something, and that when I finish this new book, I'll have, and I could be wrong, but I feel like I will have finished some chapter of my career. And that's not to say I would not ever do another book like that, but as you say, they're very hard books. They're very, very hard books to write. My publisher is awesome and gives me the time and space to figure them out. And they're hard because, do you guys think that what I write are thrillers? Do you think of them as thrillers? Do you think of that as a thriller? Like Dark Matter, Recursion? No.
Some people, I asked this question in a bunch of my meetings, and actually I got different answers. Some people thought it was definite sci-fi, but some people that read a lot of sci-fi saw it as a thriller.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. What's hard is, and the reason I think that, like, for instance, I'm doing a book club with you, Ways, is because these are not just like sci-fi books. Yeah, there's sci-fi elements, but there's like a really kind of cold, dispassionate version of Dark Matter and Recursion where you don't really connect to the characters. And we've all seen these movies and read these books where, wow, that's a really cool concept, and I don't give a shit about anything. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't care. I don't care that you can fly or whatever, because what I really care about at the end of the day is, like, is this character going through something that is meaningful to me and that connects to me and speaks to me about, like, what it is to be human. So where the hard part comes is, the science is hard, but even harder is is figuring out the right character. Like, who are the right characters to be, like, what were the right characters to populate Recursion? Why Helena and Barry and not other people? And I think they were very thoughtfully chosen, and it took a long time to figure that out and figure out why these characters. But that is, I think, why the books work. And it just takes a long time because there's not a million big scientific ideas floating around out there to, like, really wrap your arms around for a big book, but also, there's so many truly human conditions that you can, I think, explore on a super profound level that everyone relates to. Everyone can think about, like, the road not taken, and what would my life have been like if I hadn't gotten married, or if I'd married that other person who I still think about sometimes, or if I'd taken a different job. Everyone can relate to, like, the concept of memory and how nostalgia sort of haunts us and holds us down sometimes and holds us back. So it's like finding that thing that I am, and also to make it harder, it has to, like, the books also have to kind of, they end up playing into something that I'm going through at the time, like myself emotionally. And so, like, finding all those things and trying to tie them together into a book is hard, and it takes a few years. which is all to say, I would love to write easier books in the future. I don't know if I should or if that's the way forward, but I think it'd be fun to write something that was a little more, throwaway is the wrong word, but a little less like, let's talk about being human. Do you know what I mean?
A little less intense, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily completely understand this question, Ariana, but I will read it. She says, question from Denver's group. How did your proofreader feel when reading the timeline? Were you aware of the Reddit discussion about the concussion story where a gentleman lost all recent memories and felt very similar to the chair?
No, I haven't seen it. I hope they'll drop a link to that in the chat. That would be awesome, Ariana. Thank you. What was the first question? Sorry.
About the proofreader reading the timeline.
Oh yeah. Oh man. I don't think I have such a good proofreader. The same one did Dark Matter as did Recursion. She had a hard time with it, but I don't think it was a terrible time because I had to be so organized as I was writing this. I don't know if any of you seen, it's someone like I put on Twitter some time ago this what my whiteboards. That's my whiteboard, by the way, right there. So that whiteboard right there is where I do a lot of my book planning, and that thing in Recursion was just covered in like lines and little like squigglies showing literally every single timeline in the book. So I had that, and I had this very detailed like what did I call it? It's like it's kind of like a chronological breakdown of the book that defines when each chapter is set. So I had all those. I had to have all those things to keep it straight in my head. So when I gave her the book, I think I sent her that stuff as well. So I was like, I think most of this lines up. And most of it did line up. She was like, I am actually really impressed. She found like one or two things that were off. Because I mean, proofreaders will literally make sure that if you say that February 14th of whatever year was on a Tuesday, they'll go and make sure that was actually a Tuesday. So it is like pretty incredible what they do. So yeah, I didn't want her to hate me. So I tried to make it as easy as possible. And I have not seen that story, but that looks, I definitely want to, I definitely will track that down.
Oh, I think she's put the link in the chat for you. I can send it to you after if you like.
Cool, thank you.
Shara just wanted to say that she definitely recognized how human the characters were and that she felt it was very different from many thrillers. So.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, let's switch gears. What's going on with Dark Matter and the movies?
Well, it is not going to be a movie. It's going to be a TV series.
Even better.
So yeah, so I sold Dark Matter in 2014 to Sony, and when I sold it to them, so I didn't have, the book wasn't finished. I just had sold a partial to Crown, to my publisher. I had sold the first 140 pages, which goes through you remember when Daniela 2 gets killed? Mm-hmm. That's what I had. That's what the chunk of pages was. So I sold that, and that was fine because I just wanted to sell a partial to the publisher and work with my editor to continue building the story out. But those pages had leaked from from foreign publishers back over to Hollywood. And so people started calling about the book, and it became pretty apparent that we were going to have to sell the film rights. I mean, we didn't have to, but they sort of forced our hand to go ahead and sell the film rights at this point in time. So we did, and it felt like a movie. It felt like a 140 page, these 440 pages felt like it was setting up a movie, and everyone thought it was a film. So I finished the book, and I got hired to write the script. And the feature script was okay. It just was like really, it's not a movie. A feature film is like 110 pages, and you just moves, and all these great scenes were just having to get axed. really beautiful emotional moments were just not landing or getting cut altogether just for the sake of time. And so I did some work on the script. Two other screenwriters who are really good came in and did some work on the script. And we felt at the end of the day, the script was just like a B. It was a, you know, it wasn't bad, but just didn't have what the book had. And I kind of thought, well, that's it. You know, we took that shot. I really wasn't that interested in making a stupid movie off of Dark Matter. And my producers were able to move the rights out from the feature side at Sony Films over to the television side at Sony Films. And to make a very long story short, I sold it. We sold I came up with a whole new pitch for a TV series and sold that to Apple in September, and working away at it right now. Was working on it right before I jumped on this call, and we'll see. I'm cautiously optimistic. This feels very much like the right format for Dark Matter, and I'm very hopeful that we actually make it.
So that is a good next question. We know as readers all too well, so often scripts are bought and they never actually come to the screen. So is this kind of like a step further than are we closer to it perhaps being on screen?
Yes.
Good.
We're closer.
We would love to.
I don't mean to be coy about it. I just, you really cannot talk in detail about stuff because there are lots of things in motion, and
Sure.
when other attachments, whether it's actors, directors, or whatever come on, you just can't. The studio and the streamer controls when that information goes out. Fair but it is the pilot script is great. I wrote it and I'm very proud of it, and it is what we were hoping to do with the film, that I think we finally landed on the right medium.
And do you prefer writing books or writing screenplays?
Well, I love writing books when I'm writing a film, but I love writing a screenplay when I'm supposed to be writing a book. I don't know. I like them both at different times. I mean, ultimately, I love writing books. There's nothing like books, and I think I will always think of myself first as a novelist, and I hope that never changes. But I love the screenplay form as well. It is a very lean, unforgiving format. And if you don't have your story worked out, it becomes evident immediately. And I think that doing both makes you better at both in a weird way.
So you said earlier you're writing another book currently.
Yes.
So are you like midway? How long do we have to wait?
I'm right about midway. Yeah, I'm right about midway.
So another year, 2 years type.
I am doing everything in my power to have this book ready so it can be out next year. We'll see. I don't know. I will tell you, this book I had. So typically my books, both Recursion and Dark Matter, are right around 90,000 words. I had 72,000 words of the new book last August. I took a really hard look at it and just tossed it because it was not like, it didn't have the things that I need my books to have. A lot of great things, some of which were salvaged, and like a lot of the big pieces got moved over, but as a whole, it was pretty much it was a drain pour, as they say. But yeah, I feel like I have my tailwind now. But we'll see. I'm doing everything I can to get this thing ready so it can be out next year.
Awesome. Well, ladies, if you have more questions, please feel free to put them in the chat window. I'm going to ask Blake a couple of questions that have a little bit less to do with the book itself and more about you as a person. If you're not writing, what are you doing?
I'm not writing. What am I doing? Well, I'm going through an endless house remodel at the moment. So
oh, wow.
that has been all encompassing. I am probably mountain biking, skiing. I live in Southwest Colorado, so and I live here because I moved here because I love the mountains and love the desert. So outside when I can be. If it wasn't COVID, I travel a lot. Obviously haven't since last spring, but I really, really, really miss traveling because travel is such an important part of my creativity. It really just seeing other places, other countries, other cultures really inspires me. So that's a really, really important part of who I am.
And what authors and books are behind you that I can't see? Or do you like to read?
Well, so this is my office in my town. This is not my home. I don't have any of my own books at home. I have a huge library. In my office, these are all my books.
Okay.
So these are like that shelf right there. I don't know if you can tell from the top. So all that is a copy of every single book of mine that has ever been published in every language.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And these are just extras. I give a lot of books away. And so these are just, when you publish every book you publish, whether it's foreign or, domestic, you get like 25 copies. And so they tend to add up. But were you asking favorite authors or favorite books I've been reading?
Yeah, probably at home then.
Did you guys read The Silent Patient?
We did not know.
Anybody read that? No? Okay. I'm reading the follow-up.
Yeah, you've got some.
I'm reading the follow-up to that right now called The Maidens. I just read and blurbed the new, and Andy Weir. Anybody read The Martian? Or
Yeah.
Okay. So his new book is called Project Hail Mary, and it's great. I liked it more than The Martian. I thought that was fantastic. What else am I reading right now? I'm reading the Marilyn, is it Robinson, the book Gilead? I love her. I'm reading a book called Gilead. It's old. It's like a 2000 something book. It's classic. It's awesome. I read recently. Never Let Me Go. Fantastic. I love Ted Chiang. He writes
Exhalation. We just read him.
Oh, you did? Oh, what'd you think?
It was great. Yeah, it was really good. Short stories. Yeah, excellent. A lot of people will have read that here.
Yeah, I think he's just a genius. What else have I read? I read a book last year called Devolution by Max Brooks. Max Brooks wrote World War Z, and this was his first novel since then. It's a horror Bigfoot novel. If you guys ever just decide you want to read a horror novel about Bigfoot, this is definitely the one to read.
Carly just wants to know if you like The Institute by Stephen King.
I haven't read it. Actually, I have not read a ton of Stephen King. I love his book on writing. But I think I always had a hard time when I was younger because, his books used to just be gigantic and they used to be so daunting to me. I know it's stupid, but it's like every time I see a book and it's like this thick, I'm like, why? Say it faster. But I know he's writing much leaner books now. So no, but I haven't read it.
Physical book, e-copy, or audiobook?
I definitely prefer physical books. But also I listen to a lot of audiobooks because, when it's not winter and it's summer, I'm outside a lot and I tend to like put an audiobook on and go for a long trail run or a mountain bike. And I love, there's nothing better than like having a great audiobook when it's just you and you're out in nature. So a good split between physical and audio. The only ebooks I read, when I'm editing my own book, sometimes I will send it to my Kindle just to read it in a different format because I kind of see it a little, I don't know, just adds another filter. But yeah, love physical and audio.
Are you the voice of your audiobooks?
No, I definitely have recorded some stuff, like when I did the audiobook for Good Behavior, because that was a TV show also. I recorded some like bonus content and I kind of did an introduction to each chapter. But no, I like the professionals to do the narration.
Kristen says she loved the parallels between Story of Your Life by Chang and Recursion.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way, but it is sort of, there is sort of an element there, isn't it? Because you're, it's like choosing to live a life, even though you know there is pain awaiting, you know?
Where did my little page go? There it is. Name your favorite bookshop in the world.
My favorite bookshop in the world. I mean, I'm lucky because I have one of the best bookshops in the world in Durango, Colorado. It's called Maria's Bookshop. By the way, if anyone ever wants signed books from me, they're set up for me to go in there and like people can put orders in and I can go and sign and personalize. But it's a fantastic store. Everyone
Has
there.
anybody ever been there? Ariana lives in Denver.
Anyone
So
been to Durango, Colorado? No?
how far is Durango from Denver?
It's a long way.
Okay.
Like
I'm in Canada. I'm sorry. Pretty far. 6 hours. Okay. All right. Well, if nobody has any other questions, then I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I love this. I love this book club.
Well, we love you and we can't wait for the next book to come out. And so sorry, one last question just quickly with Recursion. You said you don't have anything to do with it going on the screen, but there is some talk about that happening.
Yeah. Shonda Rhimes is adapting it for Netflix with Matt Reeves, who did like he directed a lot of the Planet of the Apes movies. He's doing the new Batman. So they're building some sort of cinematic universe is what I've been told. But again, I'm not like on that, so I'm a little out of the loop.
Well, we have a lot of time for Shonda, so we will look forward to that as well.
I think she's going to do an amazing job.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, and good luck. And I hope that COVID ends quickly so that you can travel and get out there and meet your fans again.
I hope so too. I miss it so much. Stay safe all. Thank you.
Take care. Thanks, guys.